Welcome to Revitalize and Replant with Mark Clifton, where we equip pastors to take their churches from declining to thriving by pointing them to a new future and a new hope. Join us weekly for encouragement and practical advice in your pastoring journey.
Here we are with a special edition of Revitalize and Replant with Mark Clifton, and I'll tell you about it in just a moment. But before we proceed, there's Mark Clifton right there to my right. There is Mark Hallock to my left. I'm Dan Hurst. Kyle Bierman is somewhere. We're not real sure where he is right now, maybe getting coffee or something for us. And we did ask for donuts this time.
I got a cough.
You got a cough.
Can you hit the cough button?
You did just now.
We don't have a cough button.
So what we're doing is we are actually recording this live at the Replant Summit at the North American Mission Board.
Man, I just love the people in this room.
This has been
these are the best people.
Yeah.
The best.
Yes, these
I want to hug them all.
Yeah, we've got 1,000 replanters in
it's
here.
It's unbelievable.
And
this building has never seen anything like it.
Crammed them in. Don't tell the fire department.
That's right.
And don't tell Kevin Azell. But we had to turn people away.
I mean, you can actually hear them.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, listen, it's unbelievable.
We have about 1,037 people in here.
I will tell you at dinner, one of the ladies who actually is on staff here, but it was serving there at dinner, she says, "Now, how long is this going to last?"
Too long.
So, yeah, I think that was what she was asking.
Anyway, we're glad you're here. Yes, and we do love you all, pastors and pastors' wives of replants and all that kind of stuff. You are our people.
That's right.
And we love you dearly.
Amen.
So hope you know you've been loved a great deal. And thank you for the way you listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
NAM called me.
Yeah,
They found my phone number, and they reached out to me because I live in Kansas, and I like to stay below the radar. And they said, we love your podcast. We've always loved your podcast, but it was a niche podcast, right? Yep. It was for dying churches, and that's not everybody. And so it was a niche podcast, and we're grateful for it. But in their words, and they were being kind, they said it's not one of our primetime podcasts, But they said, but we looked at your numbers this year, and you have become a primetime podcast. So
primetime.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
wow.
Thank you all for listening and for subscribing. And what they told me was that since January this year, we've had over 25,000 individual listeners.
Wow.
That's
Praise
quite
the Lord,
a few.
man. Yeah.
So you can help us by subscribing. And we do have we have one of those, what do you call those codes, those square boxes? What do you call those things?
QR code.
We have a QR code.
QR code.
So what you do is during your announcement time and morning worship, put that QR code on the screen and just tell people to go ahead and subscribe because we're all about numbers.
That's
here.
right. That's what we're living for.
All right, let's get started here and ask you guys, you haven't seen these questions, have you?
No.
Okay, so I'm going to just kind of go through these and we'll just get started. We've got them in kind of categories. And so this first category that we're going to discuss is basically titled Radical Collaboration and Partnerships. So here's the question. In the Reclaiming Glory book, you offer options for churches such as church merger and church partnership. What decisions, circumstances dictate or influence that radical choice? The realization we can't do this ourselves.
Well, when they run out of money, that's usually the main decision. Seriously, it's like, we don't have any more money, we can't pay the bills, and so that's one decision. I had a church in Kansas City that the director of mission and I had visited on many occasions, and said, "Man, we'd love to help you. Can we adopt you? Can we come by and somebody foster you? Can we come along?" "No, we got it. We just got to find the right pastor," and so on. And they were down to just a handful of people, literally. And so we just, we make these visits, and nothing would come of it. But one day, one of the two remaining deacons called, and he said, "I think we're ready." I think, see, Lord, man, God answered prayer. The Holy Spirit came upon that old man and just changed his heart. So we run out there to meet with them and go, man, we're so glad that you're willing to take us up on this offer. Tell me what changed? What did the Lord do in your heart that you realized this was time to give it away? And I promise you, with every ounce of sincerity I have, he said, well, neither one of us can get up on a ladder anymore. So there you go. When you can't change a light bulb or something, then you got to give the church up. So
that's right.
Unfortunately, it's when you can't get on a ladder anymore and you don't have any money anymore. That's oftentimes when they contact us. So
that's true.
But the question was, what does it's when really you hit a dead end on leadership, and there's, for whatever reason, the church has alienated leadership to the degree that those who are true leaders have left, and there's just no leadership left, and there's no vision left, and the finances are going down. And what we say is, if the giving and the attendance and the baptisms and the loss of membership, if it were to continue like it is for the next 3 years, the church would be underwater. And if that's the case, then you're a candidate to be replanted. But we don't count, like, if you got a property you can sell, or somebody dies and gives you some money. That's called life support. That might buy you a few years, but it doesn't really change the story.
What do you find in the times that you're going through this process? Generally, what is the impression that churches who they haven't had this really explained to them, what is their general impression of what revitalization, replant really is to them? How do they perceive it?
That we're going to give them money and people, and everything else will stay the same, and they can go back to what they used to be. That's kind of what they would like. And anything less than that is a difficult choice.
So it's a very negative thing for them initially.
Initially, it's a sense of loss of what they know, loss of what's familiar, loss of control. And we've said so many times, older people have lost so much in life anyway. They've lost their health, they've lost their freedom, they're losing their friends, and their children and their grandchildren are separated from them. They don't understand technology anymore. They don't understand how to shop anymore. All the stores are different. Everything's changing in their life, but there's one place that hasn't changed, and that's that church, right?
Yeah.
And now you want to come in and change that one thing that is solid and standard in my life. And it's the one place where I still matter. My voice still matters. I don't have a job anymore, and my kids don't talk to me anymore unless they talk about me in front of me and that kind of thing. But here at this church, my voice still matters. And so you have to approach them from the standpoint that they feel like they're losing something. Now, obviously, they're gaining a lot, but they don't know that initially. And the only way to get somebody to lay down a treasure is to offer them a greater treasure than the one they have. And that's the work of replanting.
So when you went to Calvary Englewood, Hallock, what was what was the people's attitude?
Yeah. Well, I mean, part of this too, it depends on, we talk about the desperation factor.
Yes.
Like when you're assessing the readiness of a church to actually be revitalized or replanted. The analogy I use is, do the remaining leaders of this church, are they willing to name reality that we're not talking about a cold here, we're talking about cancer. You know what I'm saying? Because there are churches that think they just have a cold. And if you just think you have a cold when you have cancer, you're not willing to probably do the things it's going to take to get healthy. And so when we're looking at a church, we're looking for things like, is there a willingness to name reality? Is there a humility that says this is the Lord's church, it's not our church? Is there a desire to reach the community? Rather than seeing the community, as we know for a lot of dying churches, the community has become the problem. And we would say they're not the problem, they're the mission field. Are we willing to do what it takes to reach them? So when I came to Calvary Englewood, what I saw were a people who were marked by all of those things. There was a deep humility, there was a willingness to name reality, there was a desire to reach the community, but they were exhausted, they were tired. And so I think those are some of the indicators that we're trying to see, and Clifton could speak to this better than me, in trying to assess where is this church really?
And if those indicators aren't there, you got to do the work to get them to understand that and be aware of it. And that's some really hard work, and it can take a lot of labor. You show up at a church, and they just don't realize how if y'all got elderly parents, and I know about this because my children have elderly parents now. And if y'all have elderly parents, have you ever gone to your elderly parents and say, Dad, you know, it happened to me. I went over to my dad's house one time, and he had macular degeneration in his eyes. And I was anxious for his driver's license to expire because I knew he couldn't get it renewed, right? But it expired, and somehow or another, the state of Missouri gave this blind man another driver's license. So I was over there, and I noticed on the back of his Chevy Caprice was a dent on the back fender. And I said, Dad, what happened? He said, oh, I hit that tree backing out of the driveway. I said, well, Dad, that tree's been there for 37 years, you know. Yeah, I just wasn't paying attention. All right, so go back a few weeks later, and there's another dent on the other side. I said, what happened to that? I don't know what happened. I think somebody ran into me. Like, yeah, I'm sure. So I talked to my sisters, and I said, Dad, you really can't see. We're going to have to ask you not to drive. All right, I'll only drive to the church, the store, and the post office. I said, well, like you got that, you can go that blind? You got that? No, you can't drive anywhere. Yeah. Oh, Mark, you don't understand. It's that same kind of refusing to face reality because of what it would cost you.
Right.
It would cost him his independence and all those kinds of things. So when you talk about a dying church and you say, look, you need to be adopted by another church. Oh, we're not that bad yet.
Exactly, that's right.
There are other churches worse than us. And we just need, you don't understand, Mark. And it's very much like your aged parents. It's just hard for them to realize things have changed to the degree that they can no longer make those decisions themselves.
So we even keep track of, like, in Colorado and the West, but especially Denver, Colorado, where we don't have, obviously, we have a fraction of the number of churches, SBC churches for sure, that most of you have it, like in southern states. But as we meet with churches and just want to say, hey, we just want to partner, encourage you however we can, you can quickly tell if a church is kind of in denial. And so we try to keep the pulse and say, man, let's check back in 2 years.
Yeah.
Because you can just tell in 2 years. That's what I mean by the desperation factor. Yeah. How desperate are they to do what it takes to not only survive but thrive? And you can tell many times, and it's hard, but it's like they have enough money in the bank.
Yep.
They aren't feeling it yet, but you give that 18 months, and then they might be like, what do we do? And that's where, again, the partnership vision is we need other healthier churches to say, hey, we're ready to step in whenever we can to help. Because here's what's happening in Colorado and around the country. If there's not another church many times who's willing to come alongside and help revitalize them, especially Baptists, they're going to sell the building, and apartments or something are going to be built. And in our cities, we can't afford in Denver to build church buildings anymore. Like it's too expensive. So when we lose a building, literally we're losing in many ways a gospel presence in neighborhoods all throughout our city. So this is becoming, this is strategic thinking of how do we save the buildings. We know it's not about the building, but it's about the gospel presence within that building.
And part of our job from the very beginning when we first tackled this issue for the North American Mission Board more than a decade ago was to change the narrative so that this was not seen as a defeat but as a victory.
Yeah,
so that
right.
People, we want to change the narrative so that people don't look at it and say, oh man, we're giving up, we're quitting, we've died. No. I often say to these churches with the remaining 18 or 15 members, I really believe you're the 15 most important members in the 150 years of this church because you're the ones that are going to pass it off into such a way that you're going to guarantee its future. You're pivotal. This is an amazing decision. And so we have seen traction in the last 10 years of churches who certainly would have been completely opposed to this, saying, you know what, I've heard this work other places. It may not be easy. And I get that all the time. And I could just sit here and name this church, and this church that actually approached us and said, we've heard about this.
Right.
What do you think? So you guys are being very productive, both all of you as pastors, directors of associational missions, state guys. The narrative is changing, and this is becoming seen as a viable, meaningful option for dying churches. Yeah. Whereas 15 years ago, it was seen only as failure, and they didn't want to do it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question which is kind of a setup for another question, but the question is this: how do you find other churches to collaborate and partner? What's the process?
Well, I mean, I think the first place to start is your AMS, your DOM. I think leaning on, I was just taught, I'm sorry, I can't remember, Josh, your DOM, AMS brother, Don. Yeah, and Don's here. And I think about guys like that who would love a great AMS, who knows the churches, has a pulse on the churches, and would love to help connect you many times with another church that you could partner with on some level. So I think, like, one, we've got to lean into the network. So much of this, I'll just tell you, so much of this for you as a leader in your church is the networking you are doing all the time to build trust with other pastors and churches. I mean, it just is. Not with an ulterior motive, but we love you. We believe in this. I can tell you in Colorado, so by God's grace now, we have been able to replant 18 churches. That happened, though, it took a long time to get the first one. because churches are looking like, what is this thing? And can we trust you? And I think this is why how you replant churches matters. That to do it that honors the legacy congregation. Our approach is very much, we're not taking over your church. We're doing this together to build a new future together, building off the past into the future together. It's honoring to the Lord, I believe. It's honoring to the people who are there. Well, as soon as we were able to replant a couple churches, then all of a sudden, because of just the trust we had earned, there were other churches that said, hey, maybe we can try this. But what I would tell you is, like, we'll meet young guys like, man, I want to replant. How can I replant? And I would just tell you, especially for those of us who are already pastors, AMSs, DOMs, you got to build trust first. You got to build trust with churches. And that's why even some of those options of serving that I laid out, it begins with praying. It begins with serving so that you can earn the trust to maybe replant a congregation, because that's a big deal.
And we just gave an award for the Replanter of the Year to a pastor in California who is bivocational and pastors a normative-sized church. And the churches that came alongside and helped him replant were all normative-sized churches, churches less than 150 in attendance. Right. Okay, so obviously when this movement really began, we leaned into the really large churches who were looking to expand via campuses. It's kind of like two things kind of came together at once. Mega churches weren't getting any bigger like they had in the previous years, and that was concerning. Well, I'm getting in trouble here. That was concerning to them because that had been their identity, that we just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, boomers like big things, but the next generation, they just weren't impressed with big, shiny things.
He's a boomer. I'm a Gen Xer.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a boomer.
He's a boomer. Are you? He's the greatest generation, aren't you? I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm deeply sorry. Boomers, we like big, shiny things, but, you know, and so we kept, church had to be bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, you know, sometime after the early 2000s, a lot of those pastors that planted those churches. By the way, you go to Outreach Magazine from 25 years ago and look at the 25 largest churches in North America. And it's no secret. The one of them was the Dolphin Way Church, and it's for sale. Another one was Roswell Street, and it's taken over by Woodstock. You can just go down the list. So you had a lot of churches that had a real growth spurt, and then they began to contract, and they began to wonder, well, now what do we do? And some of them had some success by campusing. So early in this process, we had a lot of larger churches that would reach out to us and say, we would be interested in campusing in a church building that is now vacant or nearly vacant. And so certainly that's an option. That's a real option. Yeah. We began to lean into that. And then some of them said, not just campusing, we need to replant these churches. So gratefully, a lot of these larger churches sort of did a shift and a pivot and said, it's not about getting bigger here, it's about the kingdom. How can we plant and replant churches? That's right. And some of them saw replanting as a church planting strategy, right? That was kind of a stage 1 and 2. First the campusing, and then but now we are in stage 3 because we have to make this scalable. Yeah. And there aren't enough of the large mega churches to make this scalable. So what we have to do now is we have to move to where normative-sized churches like yours can replant a church. That's and right. You can. You don't have to be a mega church to replant a church. You can as a normative-sized church. And so what we want to do now, Dan, is encourage churches of 100, 150 to say, you know what? we've got some health here. We've got a leadership bench here. We care about how can we help plant and replant rather another church, and maybe I got to do it through a partnership with other normative sized churches.
That's the future. What he just said is the future, because what percentage in the SBC are normative size? Give us the...
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, 49% of our churches have less than 50 on Sunday morning.
Okay.
And somewhere along the lines of over 92, 93% have less than 200 on Sunday morning.
So just think about those numbers.
And only out of 45,000 Southern Baptist churches, only about 500 have more than 2,000 on Sunday morning.
Okay.
So you quickly run out of mega churches to do this with.
So the future is going to be churches of 200 or less
replanting churches,
working together to replant churches.
And so we have to encourage,
and that's exciting.
We have to encourage each of you to say you can do this.
Yeah.
And you can. Linwood Baptist Church, wish Howie was here, the pastor. Linwood Baptist Church in Linwood, they text me every Sunday and tell me how many they had. I don't think they know they do that. I'm just still on their text from years ago. But anyway, they had 76 last Sunday morning, right? No. Okay, and they got about 40 members. They've helped replant 2 churches, right, in the last 4 years, and done a very good job of it.
Yeah. Yep.
And they didn't have any money to put into it, but what they had, and they're on their third right now. They're on their third right now. What they had was passion and experience and some leadership and all those kinds of things that have really helped. Now, they may have been able to leverage some funding from the state convention, from the association, and even from some larger churches who said, sure, we could help fund that, but the normative sized church is the one that is doing the prayer walk, doing the backyard Bible club, doing the evangelism training, even filling the pulpit. You know, the church that is going now that Linwood's trying to help replant, they send laymen over there. I was having dinner, Jill and I having a dinner with a layman. He's a rancher. He's a cattleman. He's 70. He's a young looking 70. He looks half my age because he works every day, unlike me. But anyway, he's a cattleman, and he was excited. He said, I get to go to Maple Hill and preach next Sunday.
That's cool.
I mean, this is go great. Yeah. Anybody, what a great model that is. So that's where we want it to go, Dan. We want to find not just large churches and mega churches to be replanting, sending churches, but the normative size church, because that is the scalability.
Yeah, that's
right. All right, so here's the follow-up question then. Assuming that we have churches, normative-sized churches to large churches, no matter what size, that have agreed to collaborate, to partner in renewing dying churches. But as is the case, some of them are going to disagree on methodology, disagree on the approaches, perhaps the priorities, that sort of thing. What kind of recommendations can you give, for example, in this type of a situation, that to navigate that conversation and to bring about a healthy collaboration?
Well, there's no doubt. And by the way, these questions that we're doing tonight are coming from the audience.
From the audience.
You probably already said that, but anyway, some are from way up in the balcony up there. And we're grateful that you took time to bring your question.
By the way, I have yet to see a smile on anybody's face.
I know they don't see these
Talk
pictures.
About the joy of the Lord.
They don't see these pictures we're putting up here. But yeah, we've got some good stuff going on. In case the live audience gets bored, they can look at the pictures behind us that we're putting up there. But what in the world was I saying?
We're talking about how do you navigate the collaboration if there is some disagreement?
Oh yes, well there's always disagreement. We're Baptists. Nobody does church the same way, and so what's the ecclesiology? How do we do church? How do we make decisions? Are we going to have elders? Are we going to have deacons? Or we have the church council? Do we have monthly business meetings? Do we know who's paid all the bills? Who's going to handle the money? That's where it really bogs down, and that's where the difficult decisions come. And Hallock and I and the rest of you, many of you, your associational missionaries, you guys have been in meetings where everything on the 30,000-foot level is great. Man, we all believe the Bible. We believe in the atonement. We are Southern Baptists to the core. Man, we want to see this community reached. And then the 15,000-foot level, man, we believe and agree with most things. And you get down to 5,000 feet, you go, no, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You mean we're not going to have a church secretary? We're not going to have Sunday night church? We're not going to have monthly business meetings or quarterly business meetings? You mean we're not going to have a finance committee, or we're not going to have a personnel committee, and somebody else is going to make all these decisions? That's where the difficulty takes place. And that's where just persistence and patience and love, just working through those things relationally. and not taking the first no as the final no.
Yeah.
One thing's about geriatrics, if you want them to change anything, normally speaking, our first response is no. But that doesn't mean that's our last response. And so you just continue to come at them and love them and care for them, and you let the Holy Spirit sort of change their heart and their attitude. But certainly the adversary uses our diverse understanding of how to do church structurally to keep us apart, because Southern Baptist churches are very different in the way they do church structurally.
Well, and the only thing I would add is, I think when you're thinking about partnership for your church, I think it's very appropriate to be clear on what are, I would say first, second, and third tier issues, okay? Al Mohler talks about theological triage, right? Where there are first tier issues that we have to agree on. These are salvific issues. Then there's secondary issues that might be more philosophical. We can agree to disagree, but this way. And then there's third level issues that don't matter at all. They're very open-handed. Point being is, I think you know your church, pastor, you know your convictions. Like, I think about our church and our elders. So I'm one of 8 pastor elders at our church at Calvary Inglewood. And we have really clear, as you move up in your church from membership to pastor elders, our doctrine gets tighter.
Yeah.
There's tighter alignment, and it should for your church, I believe. And so even as we look at the kinds of partnerships we're going to have, we want to be clear on, hey, we can partner with these guys on this level. We can partner with them on this level, and we can partner with them really tightly because we really align on these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So don't see partnership as just like all or nothing. I think use wisdom to go. Now, I would say this: we're Southern Baptists. That's a pretty big tent. You know what I mean? Especially in terms of methodology. I have convictions myself about ecclesiology, about preaching, about these things. But I also know, man, I've got dear brothers in this denomination that don't agree with me on that. And that's okay. There's certain things we can do together. We can support missions. We can do a lot of things together. If I'm going to replant or we're planting a local church, I probably want to be a little more aligned. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
As they would too.
Yeah.
So
the 30,000 foot level is we believe the Bible. We believe in the.
That's right.
Basically in the
Baptist faith and message.
Then orthodoxy, and then basically the Baptist faith and message is really the 15,000 foot level.
Well, that's true.
That's
good
what
point.
I would say.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
And we can go there. And I was working with a church that was interested in being adopted by the Calvary family of churches, and I was personally their interim. And we were very excited about you guys coming along, and they were very excited about it. And so we began those discussions, and you sent guys over to meet with them and to talk with them. Yep. And at the 30,000 foot level, we were all in.
Exactly, that's right.
At the 15,000 foot level, we were all in. Yep. At the 5,000 foot level, it crashed and burned in a hurry. It just went nowhere fast.
And that's where, though, this is the beauty of being part of this. If you approach it with humility, we want to say, hey, this is great. We're not going to be the best partner for you.
Exactly.
It sounds like this church or this micro network or whatever, these guys would be great. They would be a better fit for you theologically than us. Does that make sense?
That's exactly what happened.
And that's a beautiful thing.
And so it's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And so we say when we're going through these experiences where we're trying to determine if this is a match or not, it's really important to say none of this is wasted. You don't want that group to think we've been spending 6 months talking to Calvary Network and now it's not going anywhere. It was not wasted.
Right.
You spent 6 months connecting to other believers who loved you, who learned about your church, you learned about yourself. All of that was valuable and important. None of it's wasted.
That's right.
And at the end of it, it was this mutual thing, a very loving thing, where the Calvary Network said, you're probably right. This is probably not a good match for us, but we love you. We'll pray for you. And here's another church that might be a good match for you. And that's exactly what happened. But what you don't want to happen, brothers and sisters, in order to get them to cross the line and sign on the dotted line so you can take them over, you don't want to sell it cheaply. You don't want to undersell what the differences are.
That's right.
Because then it'll blow up on you afterward. And then that's a huge mess.
The worst thing you can do, and this is an important thing to remember, in replanting in particular, the worst thing you could do is try to twist a church's arm to be replanted. Our posture is that church has to desire this. They have to want this. If they don't want this, this is going to be a train wreck in time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of the discernment of where is this church in terms of their readiness or desire.
Look,
even.
Whether you're talking about replanting, planting, or pastoring your church, here we are at the North American Mission Board, which used to be called the Home Mission Board before they changed the name and the logo. I'm just kidding. But nonetheless. And back when it was the Home Mission Board, years ago, there was a president named Rutherford. And he used to tell everybody this: for Southern Baptists, you tell the truth and you trust the people. And when it comes to anything you do as a pastor, you don't be deceitful. You're not trying to hide the truth from them. You're not trying to manipulate them to go along with what you tell the truth, and then you trust the people. Yeah. And that's what we did with the Calvary Network.
That's
we
right.
said, this is how they do leadership.
Yep.
This is what they believe,
Yep.
and we're not going to change it. And trust them. And so, tell the truth and trust the people is a really good mantra to have.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us today on Revitalize and Replant. This podcast is brought to you by the North American Mission Board, where we help dying or struggling churches regain health for the glory of God and the good of their communities. If you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform. To learn more about becoming a replanting pastor or to explore resources about revitalization for your own church, visit churchreplanters.com.